as we move on, Genesis chapter 3, verses 14 through 19, it contains what has commonly been called the curse. It's actually 3 curses that are the direct result of sin, which always destroys relationships. So the Lord God said to the serpent, "Because you have done this, cursed are you above all livestock and all wild animals. You will crawl on your belly, and you will eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." Satan mistakenly believed he'd won. He'd poisoned, tainted God's most precious creation. But here we find out what most Bible scholars believe is the very first messianic prophecy pointing to Jesus. That one day the offspring of the woman will be struck on the heel, which ultimately happened on the cross. But that this offspring would kill the snake by crushing him on the head, which Jesus did, by the way, in the resurrection. This actually sets up what we call the seed war, a seed war between the seed or offspring of the serpent and the seed or offspring of the woman. Which, when we think of seed, you usually think of it coming from a man. But right here from the beginning, that a woman, a virgin, would give birth to an offspring that would crush the head of the serpent. Which is why we'll see over the next few chapters, Satan desperately tries to destroy the seed from the woman in order to stop that offspring from ever being born. Verse 16, "To the woman he said, I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children." Sorry, ladies. "Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." Boy, do we see the consequences of that right to this very day. I mean, this verse, it defines the gender equality war of our modern culture, especially radical feminism that fights that battle every day in the news, trying to prove their worth, not realizing roles, what we're made for, has nothing to do with value. It all goes back to Genesis chapter 3. To Adam he said, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return." The earth used to cooperate as man ate from it, but now it'll take back-breaking work. And again, we see a true scientific statement that would have been impossible for them to know at this time, that our bodies are in fact made up of the very elements that make up the dust of the earth. Adam named his wife Eve, because she would become the mother of all the living. The Lord made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. Now, don't read too quickly past this. Something happened here that up until this point in the entire universe had never happened. Death. In response to their sin, God graciously provided a covering for their nakedness out of animal skins. In order for clothes to be made of animal skins, it means those animals had to die. Death just entered the world. Death is a direct consequence of sin, but don't miss how this points to Jesus. God used the death of these animals to cover their sin, just like the death of Jesus covers our sin. Yes, sin destroys relationships, but Jesus restores relationships through his death on the cross to cover our sin. And the Lord God said, "Man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat it and live forever." So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life, which we all know, a flaming sword, you know what that was. It's a lightsaber. And George Lucas, he just kind of stole God's idea. But it's interesting here, people today, they wonder, what happened to the Garden of Eden? Does it still exist? Is it somewhere on earth that, this paradise? If so, where is it? And they try to map out with the Euphrates and the Tigris River. Well, we're going to find out that the Garden of Eden, it was destroyed because of sin. The Garden of Eden, it's going to continue to exist until ultimately it's destroyed by the flood during Noah's time. Sin cut off man from the garden, leading to its destruction, ultimately cutting off his relationship with God. Sin destroys relationships. As we close, I just want to ask this question. Is it worth it? Is sin worth it? Is that girl at work that you're flirting with, is it worth the relationship she's going to destroy? Your relationship with your wife, with your kids, with God? Is marijuana worth it? Yeah, sure, it's legal in our state. We're dumb enough to make it legal, but is it worth the relationships that it'll destroy with your friends, with your parents, with your ability to think, the schizophrenia that it might bring? Is talking about everyone behind their back worth it? Is that pornography worth it? Is your temper worth it? Well, maybe as you discuss this passage in your group, maybe today is the day when you say, enough, I'm done. Jesus, I give you this sin. I give you my life. I give it to you. And I need your power to overcome this temptation in my life.